The stars stretched like cold fire across the dark sky. A smooth silver ship, shaped like a blade, slid silently through Earth's orbit. Inside it stood Ravenna, tall and proud, her dark violet skin glowing under the ship's soft blue lights. She belonged to the Valari, a powerful alien race known across the galaxy for one thing: the hunt. Every few years, the Valari nobles chose a wild planet to test their skills. This time, it was Earth, a place full of humans, weak, simple, slow, but still clever, still unpredictable. That made them worthy prey. Ravenna had waited years for this moment. She had trained harder than any other in her class. Her mother was a famous hunter, her father a warlord. Now it was her turn to shine, her first solo hunt, no help, no backup, just her gear, and one human target. Bring back a trophy, and she would earn her family's mark. She walked to the viewing window of the ship. Earth spun slowly below, covered in clouds and oceans. It looked peaceful, soft, but Ravenna knew better. She had studied the records. Humans were not without danger. Sometimes they surprised even the strongest Valari hunters. That excited her. Coordinates locked, the ship's voice said. Touchdown site, northern continent. Wild zone, human presence, minimal, technology, basic. Perfect, Ravenna. Sad, smiling, she stepped into the drop chamber. Her armor shifted and locked into place, silver blue and light as air. Her helmet slid down, hiding her face behind a sharp, glass-like visor. She gripped her plasma staff and stood straight. The ground below opened. With a hiss of air, she dropped from the ship like a falling star. She landed softly in a forest covered with tall green trees. Snow rested lightly on the branches. The air was crisp and clean. Her boots made almost no sound as she walked forward, scanning for signs of life. Birds chirped. A squirrel ran up a tree. But there were no humans in sight. She moved deeper into the woods, stepping over frozen streams and ducking under low branches. Her scanner beeped. Life form detected. Species, human. Distance, 1.2 kilometers. Her heart quickened. She tapped the screen. A red dot moved slowly across the map. Alone. Isolated. This would be easy. She climbed a hill and looked down into a small valley. There, in the clearing, stood a small wooden cabin. Smoke rose gently from its chimney. Someone lived there. Someone. Without a clue that a hunter was watching from above. She zoomed in with her visor. A man stepped out of the cabin. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a thick coat. He had a short beard, light brown skin, and calm eyes. He chopped wood with smooth, steady movements, not rushing, not worried, not afraid. This was Ben, though. Ravenna did not know his name yet. She watched him for a long moment. He moved differently from what she expected. Most humans in old recordings panicked when they saw Valari hunters. This one was ... calm, like the forest around him. Strange, she whispered. She climbed down silently and set a small trap nearby, just to test him. A simple pressure wire meant to snare the foot. She waited behind a tree. Ben walked toward the woods with a basket in hand. He stopped near the trap, looked down. Without touching it, he picked up a stick and moved the wire aside. Then, with a small frown, he looked straight toward the tree where she was hiding. Ravenna's eyes widened. He couldn't see her. Her suit had perfect camo, but still, it felt like he knew she was there. He didn't run, didn't shout, just stood there, staring into the tree's dot. Then he turned and walked back to his cabin. Ravenna stayed frozen for several seconds. No fear, no surprise. He had spotted the trap and avoided it with ease. And for a brief moment, she felt something odd. He had noticed her. She backed away, returning to her high ground. Her scanner still tracked him, but she didn't approach again that night. Later, she sat near her camp, watching the stars through her visor. The hunt was supposed to be simple. Drop, Trap, strike, collect, leave. But now, something felt different. This human had not behaved like prey. He had been calm, almost aware. And somehow, that made her feel alive in a way training never had. She smiled again, but this time, not with pride, with curiosity. Maybe, she said softly to the stars, this won't be so easy after all. And far below, in the quiet cabin, Ben looked up at the same sky and lit another candle. The next morning, a soft snow covered the forest floor. Everything looked peaceful, like a painting. Birds flew above, and the air smelled fresh and cold. Ravana stood on a high branch, hidden from sight, watching the cabin below. Ben came out. Again, just like before. He carried a bucket and walked toward the nearby stream. His steps were steady, and his face showed no fear. He didn't even glance at the trees, but Ravana stayed still. She didn't move. She just observed. Why wasn't he afraid? She had hunted other creatures before. Most of them ran at the first sign of danger. But Ben was calm, too calm. It confused her. It also made her curious. She moved closer, stepping from branch to branch. Her boots made no sound. Her armor blended into the bark and snow. She was nearly invisible. But something deep inside her said she wasn't just a hunter anymore. She was a watcher now. Ben knelt by the stream, filled his bucket, and looked around. Then he spoke out loud. I know you're there, he said simply. Ravana froze. Her hands tightened around her staff. You're quiet, he continued, but I've been in these woods a long time. The birds stop singing when you move. He didn't turn to look at her. He just stood up, water sloshing in the bucket, and walked back to the cabin. Ravana remained hidden for a while, shocked, he knew. Somehow, without any tools or sensors, he sensed her. That wasn't normal. That most humans couldn't feel Velari presence. That's why they were easy to hunt. But Ben, he wasn't easy. He was something else. That night, she returned to watch him again. He was inside the cabin, sitting by a small fire. A candle flickered beside him. He was reading from a book made of paper. His face looked thoughtful, peaceful, even kind. Outside, hidden among the trees, Ravana stared through the visor. Why didn't he have any weapons? Why didn't he run? She remembered something her teacher once said. Some prey is soft on the outside, but made of stone inside. Be careful with those. Maybe Ben was that kind. The next morning, she left a test again, this time. Not a trap. She placed a bundle of dried fruit and a smooth stone with glowing markings near the edge of the woods. A silent offering, something from her own world. Message, I see you. I am near. Then she climbed a tree and waited. Ben came out as usual. He chopped some wood, fixed the cabin door, and walked along the edge of the trees. When he saw the bundle, he paused. He crouched down, looked at the stone, and turned it in his hand. The markings glowed softly. He didn't speak. He didn't smile. But he picked up the fruit and took it with him. Ravana blinked. She didn't expect him to accept the gift. She didn't even know why she had left it. Maybe she wanted to test him. Or maybe she just wanted him to know she wasn't here to hurt him. Not yet. Days passed. Ravana kept watching. Ben kept working. He cooked simple meals. He fed birds. He helped a deer with a hurt leg by placing herbs near its trail. He didn't talk much, but his actions said more than words. Each night, Ravana sat alone in her small camp. She wasn't hunting. She wasn't hiding either. She was thinking. Velari were not taught to feel. They were trained to lead, fight, and win. Feelings were for weaker species. But when she watched Ben smile at a bluebird or hum while carving wood, something strange stirred inside her. It wasn't weakness. It was warmth. She didn't understand it, and she didn't want to stop watching. One evening, Ben surprised her. He stood outside the cabin and said clearly, "If you're going to keep watching me, you might as well join me for tea." Rivena's eyes widened behind her helmet. Was he joking or serious? He didn't wait for an answer. He just turned and walked back inside. She stood there for a long time. Then, slowly, she stepped out of the trees. She walked to the cabin door, unsure why she was doing this. Her training screamed to stop. This wasn't the hunt. This was something else, but her feet kept moving. When she reached the porch, the door was already open. A warm glow spilled out. Ben stood at the table, pouring hot water into 2 mugs. "I don't know what you drink," he said, "but it's just mint leaves and boiled water." Ravana stepped inside. The room was small but clean. The air smelled of firewood and herbs. She sat slowly on the edge of a chair. Ben didn't ask questions. He didn't seem scared. He just sat down and handed her the cup. "Name's Ben," he said. She looked at him. Then slowly, for the first time, she removed her helmet. "Rivena," she said softly. Their eyes met Dot, and at that moment, the hunt changed. The fire crackled quietly inside the cabin. Steam rose from the cups on the table. Ben sat across from Rivena, watching her calmly. She held the warm cup in both hands, unsure what to do next. Rivena had never been this close to a human before, at least, not without a weapon in her hand. Her people taught her that humans were clever but weak. She had believed that for a long time. Now, sitting across from Ben, she wasn't so sure. He didn't act weak. He didn't act scared. He acted like someone who belonged to this world and accepted whatever came his way. Rivena took a sip of the tea. It was warm, with a strong, minty taste. "Not bad." Ben smiled. "Not poisoned, if that's what you were worried about." She gave a small nod. "I didn't think so." There was a long pause. Outside, the wind moved through the trees. A branch tapped against the cabin window. The candlelight flickered. Softly, "You're not the first thing from the sky I've seen," Ben said suddenly, "but you're the first to sit across from me." Rivena raised an eyebrow. "You've seen others?" He nodded slowly. "Years ago. A ship crashed a few valleys over. I helped cover the wreck before the government showed up. Never told anyone. Figured. Some things don't need attention." She leaned forward slightly. "Why did you help?" He shrugged. "Didn't seem right to leave it exposed. Besides, they weren't bothering anyone." Rivena studied him. His answers were always simple, but they carried weight. She couldn't read his thoughts like she could with other humans. He was quiet, but not empty. Calm, but not weak. She found herself wanting to ask more questions. That was strange. She had never wanted to understand her prey before. Ben poured more water into his cup. "So, why me?" She hesitated. She couldn't tell him the truth. "Not all of it. Not yet." Instead, she said, "You were alone. No weapons. I thought you would be easy to study." He chuckled softly. "Study me? That what this is?" She looked down at her cup. "At first." Ben nodded like that answer made sense to him. After a moment, he stood up and reached for a shelf. He pulled down a small wooden box and opened it. Inside were simple tools, a knife, a chisel, and some soft wood. "I carved to pass the time," he said. "Keeps my hands busy." Rivena watched as he sat and began carving. The piece of wood slowly turned into the shape of a bird. His movements were smooth and focused. She leaned closer. "You do this every day?" "Almost," he said. "Forest gives me everything I need. I just try to return the favor." Rivena looked around. Everything in the cabin was handmade: tables, chairs, shelves. No machines, no metal. Just wood, stone, and patience. She had seen cities of steel and light, ships that could break stars. But none of them felt like this small place. Warm, honest, alive. The next few days, Rivena returned, not to hunt, not to hide, just to talk. She never stayed long, and she never took off her armor outside the cabin. But inside, she would remove her helmet, sit by the fire, and drink tea. They spoke of simple things: Weather, animals, stars. Sometimes, Ben would show her how he carved wood. Other times, she showed him small tools from her world floating. Lights, music stones, a compass that pointed toward sound. He was always curious, but never greedy. He never asked for more than she offered, and slowly, something changed. She laughed once, just a small laugh, but real, and when she realized it, she became quiet again. Ben noticed, but didn't say anything. One evening, she came to the cabin early. Ben wasn't inside. She followed his tracks into the woods and found him near the edge of a cliff, looking over the frozen valley. The sky was turning orange with sunset. He turned when he heard her. "Beautiful, isn't it?" he said. She nodded. They stood in silence for a while. Then Ben spoke again. "You know, you could have killed me the first day. I saw it in your eyes, but you didn't." Ravana didn't answer. "I don't know why," he continued, "but I'm glad." She looked out at the valley. The wind touched her face. Her armor felt heavy for the first time. "I was sent to hunt," she said quietly. "That's why I came to Earth." Ben nodded slowly. "I figured." She looked at him. "Then why aren't you angry?" He smiled gently. "Because you didn't." "That matters." Ravana looked down. "But I still could." "Yes," he said, "but I don't think you want to anymore." She didn't reply, not because she disagreed, but because he was right. That night, back at her camp, Ravana sat alone. Beside her small heater, she looked at her helmet, then at her crest, her hunter's mark. It glowed faintly, reminding her of her mission, her family, her honor, but all she could think about was Ben's voice, the way he spoke with no fear, the way he carved life into wood. He was not prey. He was something else, and she was no longer just a hunter. Something dangerous was happening, something she couldn't explain. And for the first time in her life, she didn't want to stop it. The forest was quiet, but Ravana's mind was not. She sat on a smooth rock near her camp, her helmet resting beside her. The wind carried the scent of pine and snow. Above her, the stars blinked like silent watchers. Her fingers traced the edge of her hunter's crest. It was small, silver, and shaped like a wing, an honor given to young Villari nobles when they completed their first solo mission. But she hadn't finished her hunt. Days had passed since she first met Ben, and still, she hadn't even tried to capture him, not once. She had broken no laws yet. But she knew the council would not approve of her delays or her silence. She had not sent a single message back. And worst of all, her thoughts were no longer focused on the mission. They were focused on him. Ravana stood and walked through the woods. Her steps were soft. She had memorized the path to the cabin by now. She didn't need scanners. Her heart always led her in the right direction. Ben was waiting outside, sitting on a log by the fire. He looked up as she arrived and gave a small nod. "You're late," he said, smiling. "There was fog on the ridge," she replied. He poured tea into a wooden cup and handed it to her. "It's stronger today. Used fresh leaves." She sat beside him and sipped. The taste was sharp but comforting. They didn't speak for a while. The fire crackled. An owl called from a distant tree. Then Ben spoke, his voice quiet. "You've changed." Ravana looked at him. "How so?" "You're not here to study me anymore," he said. "You're just here." She didn't answer. He was right. But saying it out loud would make it too real. After a moment, he added, "You don't have to tell me everything. But I think you're not who you were when you landed." Ravana stared into the flames. "I don't know who I am now," she whispered. "The back." In her camp that night, she activated her communicator for the first time in days. The glowing blue screen lit her face. "Command," she said softly. "This is Ravana of House Ven. Target is ... alive. Observation continues. No action taken yet." She paused. Then she ended the message without sending it. She stared at the screen for a long time. Then she shut it off. The next day, everything changed. Rivena was climbing a hill when her wrist scanner beeped. Valari life sign detected. Proximity, 3 kilometers. Signal masked. Her breath caught. She tapped the screen. The signal was faint, but real. Another Valari had entered Earth's atmosphere. Stealth mode. No warning. Not good. She moved quickly, leaping over frozen rocks and sliding through trees. If another hunter had arrived without notice, it meant trouble. Solo hunts were sacred. No one else should be here. She reached a clearing and activated her cloak. Hiding herself behind a thick tree, 2 figures stood near. A dark gray ship, half hidden under branches and snow. One was a tall Valari male with heavy armor and red markings, House Drex, known for violent tactics. The other was smaller female, scanning the area with sharp eyes. They weren't here to follow the rules. They were here for something else. And then she heard the name. The human is close, the male said. Target marked as Ben. Easy kill. We collect the trophy and go. Rivena's eyes burned. They were here for him. She moved back quietly, heart pounding. They didn't know she was here. But if they reached the cabin first, Ben wouldn't stand a chance. She had to warn him. She ran. Ben was chopping wood when she arrived, out of breath. He dropped the axe when he saw her face. What happened? He asked. Other Valari are here, she said. Hunters. 2 of them. Ben's expression turned serious. They're after me. Yes. He didn't ask why. He just nodded and picked up his pack. What do we do? He asked. Rivena looked around. We move. Now I know a place they can't follow us. They didn't speak after that. They moved fast and quiet, deeper into the forest, far from the paths and rivers. Rivena led the way, checking her scanner every few minutes. The signal was following them. The hunters were getting closer. After 2 hours of hard travel, they reached a cave hidden behind a frozen waterfall. Rivena tapped a small disc on the wall, and a light shield activated, hiding the entrance completely. Inside, the cave was dry and warm. Old carvings glowed along the walls, marks from her people, long ago. Ben sat down on a flat rock. He looked tired, but calm. Ravana stood near the entrance, watching her scanner. They'll search, she said. But they won't find us right away. Ben looked at her. You saved my life, she turned. You made me care about it. There was silence between them. Then Ben said softly, You broke your rules for me. She nodded. He gave a small smile. Good. Later, as the fire inside the cave crackled, Rivena sat beside Ben. She looked at him for a long time. I was trained to see humans as prey, she said, as something below us. Ben raised an eyebrow. And now? She placed a hand over her chest. Now, I don't know what to believe. Ben reached out and gently touched her hand. That's okay. Belief can change. Rivena didn't pull away. Outside, the snow fell quietly, covering their tracks, and deep in the forest, the other hunters searched with cold eyes, unaware that the prey they chased had already become something far stronger. The cave was quiet except for the sound of the fire. The walls gave off a soft glow from the old Valari symbols carved long ago. Ben sat near the fire, sharpening a wooden stick. Rivena stood near the entrance, her scanner in hand. They're close now, she said, her voice low. Less than 1 kilometer. Ben looked up. How long until they find this cave? Maybe an hour, maybe less, Ravana replied. The shield hides us from sight, but not forever. Ben finished shaping the stick into a sharp point. We need a plan, Ravana nodded. She paced the edge of the cave, thinking quickly. The 2 other Valari hunters were skilled, and they were following orders. To them, Ben was just a target. Nothing more. They won't stop, she said. They don't care about rules. They just want to kill and leave. Ben stood and looked around. Can we fight them? Ravana hesitated. 1 alone, maybe, but 2, with full weapons? Not unless we're smart. Ben tossed a few dry branches into the fire. Then let's be smart. Outside, snow began to fall again. The trees were covered in white. The forest looked peaceful, but danger moved through the shadows. The male hunter Kellen scanned the area with his wide mask. The female, Vara, checked. Her map. The signal was strong a minute ago, Vara said. Now it's fading, Kellen growled. They're hiding. Probably using old tech. We'll flush them out. He raised a small orb and threw it into the air. It floated up, blinking red. Tracker drone, he said. It'll find them. The drone flew forward, scanning heat and movement, but a mile away, in the cave, Ravenna saw it coming. They released a drone, she said. It'll be here soon, Ben frowned. Can it break through your shield? No, Ravenna replied, but it can find the heat from the fire. Ben stood and kicked snow over the flames. The light vanished. The warmth began to fade. Darkness filled the cave. Ravenna smiled. That'll slow it down. Ben lit a small lantern with just a flicker of flame and sat back down. We can't hide forever, he said. I know, Ravenna replied. But we don't have to. Ben looked at her. What do you mean? We lead them away, she said. Use the forest. Use tricks. You know this land better than they do. Ben nodded slowly. And after that? Then I make a choice. Ravenna said quietly, one I should have made long ago. At first light, they left the cave. Ravenna wore her full armor again, but her crest was hidden beneath her chestplate. Her staff was ready in her hand. Ben carried a bundle of sharp wooden tools and a small torch. They moved quickly through the trees, leaving false tracks in the snow. Ben tied cloth soaked in deer scent to tree branches. Ravenna placed heat stones under logs to confuse the drone's sensors. They crossed the same river 3 times, leaving tracks in different directions. By the time the drone passed through, it had 5 signals to follow. It spun in place, unsure which trail to choose. Kellen and Vara were growing angry. Too many signs, Kellen said. They're playing with us. They'll run out of tricks soon, Vara replied. We press forward. Keep scanning. But Ravenna and Ben were already watching from above, hidden in the trees. They fell for it, Ben whispered. Ravenna nodded. Now we split. Ben looked at her sharply. Split? I lead them east, she said. You head west to the rocks near the cliffs. There's a cave there you can use. And what about you? He asked. She looked at him for a long moment. If I don't come back by sunset, she said, keep moving. Don't wait. Ben's jaw tightened. I won't leave you. You have to, she said. You're the reason I opened my eyes. You're worth saving. Ben stepped forward and held her hand. Her armor was cold, but her fingers were warm. Inside, you're not just a hunter anymore, he said. Don't forget that. Ravenna nodded once. Then she turned and vanished into the trees. Kellen and Vara soon picked up her trail. There, Vara said. One life sign. Full Velari energy. She's leading us. Kellen grinned. She must want to fight. They followed fast. But Ravenna knew the forest better now. She led them into narrow paths and under low trees where their armor slowed them down. She set small traps, falling nets, loose branches, noise bombs that confused their sensors. And finally, she stopped at the edge of a wide clearing filled with tall stones. There she stood in plain sight, staff glowing, helmet off. Looking for me? She called. Kellen and Vara stepped out. You broke the rules, Vara said. You protected prey. I made a choice, Ravenna replied. He's not prey. He's more alive than either of you. Kellen raised his weapon. Then you'll fall with him. The battle was fast and sharp. Ravenna dodged the first strike, spun low, and knocked Vara back with her staff. Kellen fired a shot, but she rolled behind a stone and threw a spark disc that exploded near his feet. She fought with focus, not rage. With purpose. She didn't need to win. She just needed time. In the end, she jumped off a ledge and vanished into the mist below, her signal blinking out. The hunters searched, but found nothing. Back in the cliffs, Ben waited. As the sun dropped low, he heard a sound, soft footsteps behind him. He turned. Rivenna stood there, scratched, tired, but smiling. "You didn't think I'd let you freeze out here, did you?" she said. Ben smiled, and for the first time, he stepped forward and hugged her. She didn't pull away. The stars were shining above the frozen cliffs. The wind whispered across the rocks, gentle but cold. Inside the small cave, a fire glowed softly. Rivenna sat by it, wrapped in a thick blanket Ben had given her. Her armor was scratched from the fight. Her body ached, but her mind was quiet. Ben sat across from her, carving a small piece of wood. He didn't say much. He had given her space, knowing she needed time, but his silence wasn't empty, it was full of care. Rivenna stared into the fire, thinking about everything that had happened. About her people, the hunt, the rules. And about him. Ben was not like the others she had known. He didn't chase power. He didn't care about rank or trophies. He lived simply, with peace in his heart. And somehow he had changed her. Later. That night, when the fire had died down to glowing embers, Ben walked to the entrance of the cave and looked at the stars. "They'll send more," he said quietly. Rivenna nodded. "I know." Ben turned to her. "You could leave. Take your ship and go. You don't have to stay here with me." Rivenna stood up slowly and walked toward him. She looked out at the stars too. "I used to think my place was among them," she said. "That I belonged to the stars. That I was born to hunt, to fight, to follow the laws of the Villari. And now?" Ben asked. She turned and looked at him. "Now? I'm not sure where I belong. But I know this, when I'm with you, I don't feel lost." Ben smiled, just a little. "Then maybe you've already found your place." As the sun rose the next morning, Ben prepared breakfast, just roasted roots and berries. Simple food, but warm and filling. Rivenna accepted the bowl with a quiet thank you. She ate slowly, watching him move around the cave. Finally, she stood and walked toward him. "I want to show you something," she said. Ben looked curious, but nodded. "All right." Rivenna placed his hand gently over her chest, right where her armor would normally cover her heart. "Do you feel that?" she asked. Ben's hand rested there for a few seconds. Then he blinked in surprise. "I feel it," he said. "It's like a heartbeat." She nodded. "It wasn't there before." Ben frowned. "What do you mean?" "I'm Villari," she explained. "Our kind, we don't have hearts like humans do, not like this. We have life inside us, yes, but it doesn't beat like yours." Ben stared at her. "But now it does?" She looked down. "Only when I'm near you." He didn't speak for a long time. The fire cracked in the background. Outside, snow began to fall gently again. "That's not normal, is it?" Ben asked at last. "No," Rivenna said softly. "It's not." She looked at him, her voice steady. "I think being close to you is changing something inside me. Not just my thoughts, my body too, my energy, my rhythm, my heart." Ben stepped closer. "Maybe your people call it change," he said. "But we humans, we call it connection." Rivenna's breath caught in her throat. She had studied human emotion before. Labeled it as weakness. Called it chaos. But now standing this close to Ben, her thoughts were clear. Her body felt warm. Her heart, the new one, beat faster every time he looked at her. "I don't know what's happening to me," she whispered. Ben smiled gently. "You're not breaking, Rivenna. You're becoming something more." That evening, the snow outside grew heavier. The cave glowed softly with firelight and lanterns. Ben placed a blanket over Rivenna's shoulders. "I carved something," he said, handing her a small wooden figure. She looked at it carefully. It was a bird with its wings spread wide, about to fly. "It's beautiful," she said. Ben looked at her. It reminded me of you. Ravana turned to the figure in her hand. Do you think I can really fly again, after everything I've done? Ben nodded. Yes, but not with the same wings, with new ones. She looked at him, eyes soft. And if I fall, I'll be there to catch you. That night, Ravana couldn't sleep. She stood at the mouth of the cave, watching the stars. The sky was clear again, and the moonlight touched the snow like silver paint. Her chest still beat with that strange, soft rhythm, not pain. Not fear, something deeper, something human. She looked up at the stars and whispered to herself, "What am I becoming?" From behind her, Ben's voice came gently. "You're becoming free." She turned. He stepped beside her, his coat pulled tight around his shoulders. "You don't need to be what they made you. You can choose." She nodded. And for the first time she believed it. The next day, her scanner beeped again. Another signal. This one different. Larger. A Valari warship had entered Earth's orbit. She showed the screen to Ben. His face stayed calm, but serious. "They're coming for you," he said. Ravana shook her head. "No, they're coming for us." Ben looked at her. "What will you do?" She stared at the blinking dot. "I'll stop running," she said. "I'll stand." He looked at her with quiet pride. "Then I'll stand with you." She smiled, heart pounding like thunder, this time not from fear. The warship hovered high above Earth like a giant shadow. Clouds broke apart as it passed. Its dark surface reflected the sunlight like cold steel. Inside, Valari warriors prepared to land. Their orders were clear: remove the traitor and eliminate the human. On the ground, in the cliffs near the forest, Ravana stood beside Ben. She stared at her scanner. The ship was less than an hour away. "They came faster than I thought," she said. Ben packed his tools into a small bag. "They must have tracked the other hunters." Ravana nodded. "They know I broke the rules. They'll call it betrayal." Ben looked up at her. "You didn't betray anyone. You just chose something better." Ravana touched the crest on her chest, then removed it. She dropped it onto the snow. "I don't want their mark anymore." They spent the next hour preparing. Ben led her to an old cave farther down the cliffside, one he used long ago for storage. It had narrow tunnels and only one way in. It was safe for a while. Ravana used her tools to set up barriers and flash fields. Ben helped gather branches and stones to hide the entrance. "If we can hold them off long enough," she said, "I might be able to send a false signal. One that tells them I'm already gone." Ben paused. "And if they don't believe it?" Ravana looked at him, calm but firm. "Then we fight." Ben didn't argue. He just kept working beside her. The warship sent down a squad of hunters. 6 armored warriors moved through the forest with speed and silence. They carried high-energy weapons, sharp and deadly. They followed Ravana's trail to the cliffs. Inside the cave, Ravana finished placing her final defense trap. She turned to Ben. "You could still run," she said softly. Ben looked at her with steady eyes. "I ran from the world for years." "Not anymore." She felt the rhythm in her chest again, her new heartbeat. Strong, steady, human. "I don't want to lose you," she said. "You won't." Ben replied. The first explosion came at sunset. The lead Valari warrior triggered a defense field near the cave. Light burst through the snow, blinding them for a second. Ravana fired a sound pulse that echoed through the rocks, forcing them to scatter. "They're testing us," she said. "Looking for a weak spot," Ben nodded. "Let them try." They moved deeper into the cave, staying close. Ravana checked the signal device again. "It's working," she said. "The false trail is uploading now." Ben looked outside through a small crack. "Then we hold them off until it finishes." The next attack was stronger. 2 warriors stormed the entrance. Ravana threw a shield disc that bounced off the walls and knocked one back. The second made it through, but Ben hit him with a fire torch, sending him stumbling into a trap. They fell back to the second tunnel. "They're too many," Ravana said. I have to finish the signal now. She connected her device to a metal spike and sent it up through a crack in the ceiling. Blue lights flashed. The signal launched. Outside, the warship's sensors picked up the false message. Target Ravenna, escaped. Signal now off-world, the warriors stopped. They waited. Ben and Ravenna stood together, watching from behind the rocks. A long silence passed. Then, slowly, the warriors began to retreat. The signal had worked. Ravenna let out a slow breath. They're leaving. Ben gave a small smile. Told you we could be smart. That night, the sky was clear again. The stars shone down over the cliffs. The warship moved away, turning toward deep space. The sound of its engines faded into the wind. Ravenna sat beside Ben on a flat rock, watching the sky. They'll think I'm gone, she said. They won't search here again. Ben looked at her. So what happens now? She was quiet for a moment. Then she reached into her small pack and pulled out the carved wooden bird he had given her. I don't belong to them anymore, she said. I choose my own path. And where does that path go? He asked. She turned to him. Wherever you are. Ben smiled. Then let's walk it together. She leaned her head against his shoulder. The forest was quiet. The stars were bright. And in her chest, her new heart beat strong, not for the hunt, not for duty, but for life, for peace, and for him. Far above, on the edge of deep space, the Valari warship continued its journey. The command center received the last transmission from Earth. No target detected. Planet clear. Mission ended. The screen faded to black dot back on Earth. Spring slowly began to bloom. The snow melted. Rivers flowed again. Birds returned to the trees. In a quiet cabin, deep in the forest. A man and a former hunter built a new home, one carved from wood, warmed by fire, and guided by trust. Ravenna no longer wore armor. She wore peace. And Ben? He no longer lived alone. Together, they planted seeds in the soil, and in each other's hearts, something new grew, something not even the stars could touch.